welcome to quarter two, meetup number one, the load shedding edition, also known as the technical roadmap for the programmable banking. So thank you very much for attending. For this is our first meetup for the quarter. As you guys might know, there are plenty of you guys who are old members here, but I see one or two new guys here, so welcome. My name is Nick Benson. I'm the community lead, community manager, whatever you want to call me, your buddy in the community. I've been involved in OfficeN for the last year, since March. I'm ex-banking, ex-government, ex-startup, ex-number of things. But for this meetup, for you guys, for the community, this is our first meetup for this quarter. So we normally go through a first meetup where we talk about what is in store for this quarter. So you can look at what Wayne and Henny and the whole team are busy building out for the programmable banking, the API itself. And then also to look back at what we actually achieved, to just take a look at, to say, hey, this was actually pretty cool, what we did in quarter one. Our second meetups around some ideation fun. And then of course, our third meetups are really the demos and just the really parties, whole celebration meetups for the community. For this quarter, our theme is low code, no code, or banking. How do we do that? You know, what is the process? So that's the theme for this quarter. The agenda tonight, Wayne, Henny, the guys will walk us through their technical roadmap for this quarter. Russell has a very cool community board that because he's really keen to share with us, and I'm really keen to see. And then of course, some community updates on our hackathon that's coming up in this quarter, some giveaways, and then Milan's going to give us a quick update on our spreadsheet banking, because that ties into our hackathon. But I don't want to give too much away, but of course we'll kind of explain all of that then. Cool. Everyone happy with the agenda? Anyone wants to add anything? Cool. Guys, we do record these meetups for the guys who can't attend. But again, this is an informal sort of meetup. If this is your space, if there's something you want to chat about, want to talk about, please let us know in the chat. Put up your hand, shout, scream. It's all good. Cool. Happy. Okay. I think moving along. Wayne, any details you want to give us around your plans for quarter two, the technical roadmap? So should have changed.
Have my slides there? Must I put them up?
No, I've got your slides here. It's not a problem. Because I know you. So because I know you.
Yeah, you know I'm useless. That's good. Well prepared then. So this was just recapping what we said in the first quarter, what we were going to focus on. Our dev portal, you all know we built a new dev portal. The old one was getting a bit dated. And it was confusing to work with. The transfer API, we did end of last year, the hackathon with that. It was like launched to a small group of people, but we needed to launch it to everybody. So like just enabling that for everybody to use it. There was a big focus in getting three-legged OAuth out. I won't go into detail there, but that was, I think, our big achievement for quarter one. Was getting the three-legged OAuth out for both private bank and our corporate business. And then we started looking at this low code, no code thing, and beneficiary payments. That's what we said we're going to do. Just around the beneficiary payments, we haven't really focused on that yet, but we'll get to that now. So click next slide. Okay, so I think a theme for us in the beginning of this year was we started to get a lot of volume and usage of these things. We found some of the things weren't really being optimally looked after, like some of the stuff was a bit slow. We needed to do some upgrades. So we did like as I'm sure you all know, like a bit of a technical upgrade, cleanup, housekeeping exercise in quarter one. We improved like the way logging works, the monitoring on things to make sure they're always up, the performance on the root engine, stuff like that. We upgraded our root engine from Node, I think, what was it on any? 10, 12 to 16?
Yeah, 12.
12. And I don't think 12 was quite getting outdated. So we needed to do that. And then we added the after decline event, which basically, if you in the root engine, there used to be two events, the before transaction, after transaction. There's now a third event that's triggered, which is after decline. So if your card gets declined, you can look into that and then try and do something, whatever you need to do for decline transactions. Okay, So having said all of that, what are we going to do in Q2? Our dev portal, we still haven't launched it. I don't know if you all remember, we have this 90-day waiting thing or 3-month waiting thing in the UK to flip it over. So there's a beta website. Not really like it's live, but nobody's using it yet because we have to wait for the official URL to change over. So that will be happening in Q2. I think a big focus, and it sort of started in Q1, and I think it flowed nicely in Q2, was this low code, no code concept. The reasoning there was that, like, as I explained last time, to get a third-party app registered for us to use three-legged OAuth, it's quite a laborious, painful problem. Like, if you're just a dev and you just want to play around, there's no point in having this massive onboarding process to become a registered third-party vendor with us, just so you can play around. So what we're saying is there a way of enabling the community to have access to the stuff without going through that process, and to make it easier for everybody to just get up to speed and code some stuff? So a lot of the focus was trying to alleviate some of those barriers to entry that we have for using the API. And I think we're making some really good progress on that. I think you'll see with the demos and things coming, just some amazing things we're doing there. Beneficiary payments, that's definitely on the roadmap for Q2 now that we've cleaned up. Portfolio view, this is an interesting one. I don't know if any of you have a stockbroking account with Investec. If you go to Investec online, you'll see that share page that says you've got X amount of shares, it's valued, whatever at that. We are looking at putting that into the API, just so like you can basically pull your portfolio or your shares that you hold and all your investments out of the API as well. So it's our first stab at non-banking type of functionality, but I think it's a good, interesting place to start looking at how we affect the rest of financial services outside of banking. So this is more around wealth and investment type of products. I don't think we'll do spreadsheet trading yet. That will come later, but for now, at least, let's just pull out your shares and show them to you and let you. I know people sometimes have little macros and things that they put in for stop losses, all of that. That'll give you a nice way to get your shares into a spreadsheet or to somewhere where you can play around with it. So just the way, like in middle last year, I think end of last year, we added the code update endpoints for root on the API, so which basically means you can go and update your root code on your card via the API. You don't have to use that IDE in Investec Online. We've had lots of, as we roll that out and the volumes increased, it's become a bit clunky how you update your code, especially if you have like more than 10 or 50 or thousands of cards like somebody. It became really hard to update your code. You have to like write loops, and the front end was a bit iffy. So we're doing a lot of changes there to do sort of a bulk update of code across multiple cards, just so that you don't have to struggle to get, if you have more than one card or whatever, that you can update multiple of them quicker. Especially important in the business space, where companies will issue, I don't know, 100 cards, and then when they change the code, obviously that becomes quite a painful exercise for them. Virtual cards, I'm happy to say, is in development. It has been prioritized. We are in the build phase of that, so that's exciting. I can't give you dates on that yet because it's sort of out of our hands, but the team that is building it is working on it, which is a positive sign. And then just there's some house cleaning that rolled over from Q1. We're probably going to spend some time on that. So it's not the most exciting roadmap. I think beneficiary payments portfolio view will be very nice. And I think that the big focus for Q2 is about getting the barriers to entry of using the API like removed and getting people better access to it, so it's not so painful. And I think a lot of the work in the hackathon that Nick and them will be talking about is focused around that. So any questions or comments?
Yeah,
any did I miss anything? Yeah, virtual cards. Yeah, virtual cards was the very first thing the community asked us for. So I've been like dodging that bullet for so long, but now I can officially say we are working on it. So it's nice. It's what a pain to get that done.
There's a question from Reynard. With the beneficiary or payments, are we including the public beneficiaries?
I don't know the definition of a public beneficiary, but they will be like if you go to Investec Online and you add a beneficiary, there's two types. There's normal beneficiaries like your mother or your uncle, and then there's pre-approved beneficiaries like City of Johannesburg. All of those, I believe both of them will be enabled. So you'll be able to add a pre-approved, we call it a pre-approved beneficiary, like an Investec pre-approved, and a non one. Oh, the pre-approved. Yes, we are definitely doing pre-approved there. Yeah. So it mimics the functionality you have online. So you'll be able to add both types of beneficiaries.
Any other
That obviously
questions?
opens up a lot of options for us around payments. We're probably not going to get to third-party payments, but this will be like a good start to get us into the payment ecosystem.
And just to be clear, the beneficiary payment at this stage, like transfers, are only available for private bank accounts,
Yes.
not corporate accounts.
So I don't know if I mentioned before, just around the beneficiary payments, you will not be able to add beneficiaries through the API, because then you could potentially add a beneficiary and pay out to a third party, and that's where the big risk lies. So to add a beneficiary, you'll still have to go to Investec Online, log in, add the beneficiary, and then via the API, you'll be able to pay to that beneficiary. So that alleviates some of the risk of somebody hacking the API with your credentials and then paying out all your money, because they'll have to go to the digital channel to basically add the beneficiaries first.
Wayne, is there anything that you would like to ask for the community? Anything that you would have the question or an ask to the community from the product side?
I think the big question we always ask is like, what would be valuable for the community? Like we obviously work with the input we're getting, but if we are going down on a tangent and you think that's not valuable and something more valuable we should have focusing on, then like let us know so we can like really put our efforts where the most value is. We believe what we're focusing on now is the biggest value for the community and for like Investec at the same time right now. But obviously this is evolving. We always said the community will drive our roadmap. Like I don't sit there and think what we're going to do next. Like we had lots of things around. I want to build an app for other people can use. We built three-legged OAuth, but that then introduced this vetting process that we got stuck with a bit of the barriers to entry. Now we're removing that. So we're just trying to alleviate some of the barriers to entry. I think some of the things, like for me personally, I would find interesting in the API would be things like the VAS stuff, like prepaid electricity, airtime. I'm sure there's somebody that will come up with some clever way of using that. So I think any that speak around, we're going to look at maybe if we can add that in just as an extra. And I know there was the cash send alternative we looked at from a payments point of view. So that thing where you can send a token to somebody and then go to Pick and Pay and collect the cash. Like I haven't heard the overwhelming yes, that would be useful, but that's also sort of on the roadmap to be considered in the future. You're on mute.
Very first time after all these years, I'm on mute. I think Reynard had the question in the chat around the transfers for corporate accounts. That is possible because that's not possible, as Henny mentioned, or does that come a bit later on? Is it something
It's
that
coming later on? The systems just don't have feature parity yet. We are definitely trying to get it there, but it's not there at the moment. We'll probably in the corporate side roll out transfers first and then beneficiary payments. Or maybe we're lucky we can do both at the same time. But that's the teams are building it internally or exposing it. We just need to do the work.
Cool. And Jogs,
and then the question around beneficiary payments, proof of payment. I can't actually tell you right now. I think when you pay the beneficiary, you set up that SMS notification thing where you say, when I pay this beneficiary, SMS this email address or send a SMS or whatever to that number. So if you set it up that way and you do a payment, it will automatically email those notifications to somebody. I don't know if you mean by a proof of payment, which I know there's a separate way where you go and you say, I want to send a proof of payment. That's not going to be there.
Okay, thanks.
Dan just is very excited about the beneficial payments to API and up to the Osui. I think we all would like that. I think Henny did a very cool voice banking.
Talk to Henny. Henny is obsessed with voice and voice banking. He's already done transfers. I'm sure as soon as beneficiary payments out, he's gonna do lots of cool stuff. He's also looking at Google Home automation into the API, which is very interesting. But that's his pet project. We can't talk about that.
Because as soon as I talk about it, I'd get pressure.
Now then we want it.
I've actually already started using Siri, and it just adds a payment instruction to my notes, and I process it manually because I know at some point it's going to be automatic, and I want to get the habit going.
You should talk to Annie. He's got transfers going in Siri. He can like say, "Hey Siri, transfer $100," and like he demoed it. I think last meetup
Nice.
or 2 ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll share the I think it is in one of the chats, but those I've shared the snippets, the Siri snippets to do that, and basically just put in your credentials and you're off to the races.
Russell asked about test QA demo bank accounts and ability to simulate transactions.
Yeah.
So that is that is something we're going to be working on. As like a next post the kind of spreadsheet banking low code stuff. So Jock is helping on that hopefully next. So we've got a few people from Platform 45 who'll be looking at that. Jacques also been asking, hey, how do we get that? I was like, you've got to help us build it. So Russ, so I don't have a ETA. I'd hope to do it quite quickly. To give an idea of the design plan there, chatting to some guys who do basically wallets and accounts as a service, like white label stuff, so that we could plug kind of a proper ledger system with UI, everything that you could set up, and then have it talk Investic API as test runs. So that's what we're thinking. I don't have a solid ETA on that yet, but it's pretty obvious when you're developing, like one really wants this. So it's a bit scary testing
we
real money.
identified the main barriers to entry for just anybody just playing around, and that was definitely one. That and the fact that you need a vendor registration process if you want to go build an app that uses OAuth. So that's part of our no code. We're trying to figure out how do we solve that problem in the context of that.
Yeah, I find whenever I'm trying to demonstrate any of my solutions, I find it's quite awkward because I've often got personal information that really shouldn't be displayed, you know, and I'm really keen to show this to someone, but you know, I don't want to expose my personal information. And sometimes it may not, you might not think it's personal, but you know, it could be an account number in the descriptor or something like that. And yeah, I think it's a bit of an inhibitor. I think there would be more sharing of information and more presentations in this forum and whatnot if somebody could, if we didn't have to expose our own information.
Yeah, 100%. So a quick hack we are doing for this hackathon, and I think your use case also ties in just to people who don't, developers who don't have an Investec account but want to build things. You know, we don't want that to be a barrier. So part of this hackathon as a kind of a hack, and also just to see what happens, we will open up a community account that different people can access using that kind of low-code middle layer, so that different teams can play demo, build on that. So it will be a demo account, but a real account, but a demo account, if that makes sense. And we'll kind of ask everyone to play nice and not use too much money out of it, and just see what happens. It's a little social experiment too.
Cool. Guys, if there's anything, did we miss one? Sorry. Okay. There's another one. Can we make the third bug games? Okay, that's a clear no.
Answer to Tinas now.
Sorry.
So there's that we'll be able to give out card numbers and stuff. So you will be able to go relatively nuts. Just ask everyone to not go too nuts, please.
You shouldn't say that to Tinas. He's dodgy. I'm just saying. Okay. Any questions? Guys, otherwise,
if there's anything else, guys, please feel free to.
Sorry, I didn't scroll up. I saw there was that Russell question or whatever. I missed.
If there's anything else, guys, please feel free to use the chat, Slack. Please continue. Feel free to continue. I'm sure Wayne and Henny and everyone will jump in there. Cool. Thanks. The question is answered. Nice one. So Russell, your question is answered, but our question is not answered on what you have ready to demo for the community. So if you would like you can share your screen.
Okay, are you able to see it?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, man.
Okay. Thanks very much for the opportunity to present, guys. So some of this might not be so great for more advanced programmers, but I thought it would definitely help some of the newer people, just this concept that I've come up with over here. And I've called it reduction of navigational friction, but really it just translates to effectively fewer clicks, okay? So the problem statement that I started off with was, how can I get more decision-making information? Okay, and I'll specify information there, not just data, not just a whole lot of letters and numbers, okay, with fewer clicks. So I don't have to click on this, go and look at that graph, go and look at this pivot table, etc. I've just heard that the recording has stopped there, Nick. Okay.
Sorry, my power went back on and off and shut off and
Okay, cool. You can still hear me, eh?
Yeah, still good. Thank you.
All right. So the concept that I'm going to impart over here, I believe, can be applied in any tech stack. Okay, so the concept of what I'm calling conditional formatting, or what Excel calls conditional formatting, can be applied anywhere, and I'll demonstrate it in a moment. So don't get hung up on the fact that I'm using a spreadsheet for my personal banking. Okay, so the concept here is simplicity, okay, and this might fit in with this quarter's hackathon theme as well, okay, so we got to go for simplicity because it's the ultimate sophistication, effectively. So how it works, so just to provide some context, I've spent a lot of time analyzing my API banking information, like really in a lot of detail. I've developed graphs, I've developed pivot tables, etc., and I found them useful, but I kept on finding myself going back to the actual source data, the actual original import from the API, and looking at that because it has all the information, obviously. And I took a note of all the navigational instances. So whenever I needed to go and investigate something, where I'd click or I'd scroll or I'd change tabs in my spreadsheet to look at another report, etc., and then I set myself a goal to basically minimize that navigation. So I want to sort of almost look at one report, and I want it all to jump out of me. And I almost want it to say to me in this one page, this is what you need to do, Russell. You need to cancel that debit order, or you need to reduce your spending in this in this stream, or something like that. Okay, so I wanted to try and get like 90% of my decision-making information extracted from just that ingested API or the extraction from the API. So in doing so, what I had to analyze is, what am I looking for? Why am I looking at this data? What is going to result in good decisions coming? And I boiled it down to this list that's in the slide. So first of all, I want to know, was I expecting this expenditure or not? Because if I wasn't expecting it, I need to find out why it's there. You know, theoretically, it could be a fraudulent transaction. Not that I've ever encountered that. But I must be expecting it. If I'm not expecting it, then I need to analyze that and find out why it's in my bank account. Then the obvious one that everybody goes for is the high value items. These are the ones that are busy draining your wealth. Okay, so they're the ones that require most of your attention. So this is the sort of Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, if you've heard of it. Basically, you'll find that 20% of your transactions will probably consume 80% of your bank balance, you know, and those are the ones you need to focus on if you're ever going to try and stop them reducing your bank balance. Yeah, and they are where problems could be hidden. Credit card for my wife, which she uses very responsibly, but it's of interest to me to see who spent that money, because if I see my wife spent it, well, I know immediately, and I don't know exactly what it was for, I know who to go and speak to. And then a key thing for me is the spend uncontrollable? Okay, and by uncontrollable, I mean things like not via my credit card. So a debit order, for instance, and you'll see I've got a little angry face over there because debit orders I'm not so keen on, you know, because you almost can't stop them. And so you want uncontrollable spend to pop out because you've got to realize that this is going to happen regardless. You have almost no control over this, and there's nothing you can do unless you go and stop a service, etc. And then, do I have the necessity? My solution associates itself automatically with supporting. So I do a quick scan of my expenditure and I drop it into a folder, and my bot goes and picks it up and associates it. And I'll show you an example of that just now. And it basically tells me, do I have that supporting document? Because it may be missing and it may be important from a taxation point of view. And then, is this transaction insignificant? So as well as looking at what grabs my attention and needs me to take action, one also needs to consider what doesn't need my attention at all. And I was finding I was getting quite a few transactions that my bot was creating, and I've got full confidence and trust in it now. I don't need to look at those. So I actually de-emphasize them because they're not significant. Okay. So those were the key analysis items that are sort of set as the ground rules. So the solution that I applied over here was basically the usage of automated conditional formatting. So effectively for programmers, it's a simple if statement, you know, if this, then that, okay? And the that is visual enhancement. So changing the background, changing the text coloration, etc., and associating an additional dimension of information. So you've got this sort of 2D list of data that represents what has transpired in your bank account. Now you're sort of bringing that out to a 3D element to say, here's the data, but these are the ones that require your attention. These ones don't require your attention. And specifically jumping out, the more important it is, the more it must grab your attention. And I'll show you an example in a moment. So what it uses is data that is not currently in your field of view. So for instance, I don't have the credit card numbers that were used specifically in the view. They're off to the side somewhere, but it uses that information to accentuate elements that are in view. Here is that it detects anomalies. So for instance, I wasn't expecting this expenditure. It was unable to automatically categorize it, which means I don't have a rule set up for it, which means I was not expecting it to happen. So that with little or no navigational friction, and again, navigational friction is basically clicks and moving around on the screen, I very quickly get all this information imparted to me so that I can, within a minute or two, sort of make decisions on what has happened in my bank accounts over the last day. So just remember that this concept is extensible. It's not specifically for spreadsheets. It works in both MS Excel and Google Sheets. It's inherent there and very mature. You know, the conditional formatting has been around for a while. And it's one of the most underutilized. So spreadsheet functionality is quite advanced. It permits a lot of complex formula in that rule evaluation. That's one of the reasons that I make use of the spreadsheet for my solution. So this concept can be applied programmatically in any application. So any UI that you're now displaying this information, theoretically, you should be able to change colors of text, change the background, etc. So it's not just about spreadsheets, this. So I'm just going to quickly demonstrate an example. So this is an extraction of my personal data. You will see some has been blurred. That's where I definitely don't want that information seen, but I've tried to leave as much as possible on here. Just so that you've got a bit of context. So very quickly, this transaction over here couldn't be automatically categorized. So I don't have a rule for it. So my bot was not expecting this. So you can see it's accentuated it, and it's sort of really thrust it out at me in the first view that I see when I open my bot up, and tells me you need to look at this and see, is it for you? And if it is, what do you want to do with it? Where I've got blue text, that means that there's a supporting document. So I know that I can click on that if I want to, and I'll actually see the supporting document if I've got a question about that expenditure. Where it's got red text, it's telling me there's no supporting documentation here, and it was expecting one. Where it's black text, it means there's no supporting documentation and it wasn't expecting one. So large debits, you'll see being emphasized over there. And yeah, I put in a parameter. The user maintains a parameter. So it's not something that I've gone and coded, hard-coded into the rule. It's something that as and when you change whatever you consider to be material, you'll be able to change it yourself as a user. Same thing, credits are highlighted in green, but not small credits, because I don't want the R3 interest to be highlighted. That doesn't need my attention. Then debit orders are actually, they come up in orange because, like I say, I've got a thing about debit orders because I know that they're uncontrollable. So I need to be aware that I didn't have control over that expenditure there. My wife's card comes up in pink and mine come up in blue. So I'm able to differentiate who made the spend very easily. Then you'll see I've got the text in bold for the first because that's when all my debit orders come through. And then I've also, and this is quite important, I've de-emphasized some transactions. So those that are gray on the screen are the ones that my bot did automated transfers of its own accord. And I've got full confidence in them. I don't need to look at those transactions. So if it's a very small amount, or if it's these automated transfers, I don't want to see it. This is what the conditional, can I just confirm that you're still there and you can hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
thanks.
thank you. I'll speed up. This is the rules manager. This is just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Okay, so these are the rules. So this couldn't be categorized. Wife's card transactions, my card transactions, debit orders, things that must be de-emphasized. So on the left-hand side, you've got the formula that's applied. In the middle, there's what color or what accentuation is required. And then on the right-hand side, it's what it gets applied to. Okay. But again, you can see that this can be applied in any type of coding. This is just what a snippet looks like. It's just a bit complex because I used gradient coloration. You know, it could be a lot simpler than that. And the important thing is to give power to the user. I've parameterized some of these elements. Okay, so hopefully I'll parameterize them all. And by that, I mean the user can choose what value or condition is required for the formatting, definitely for the simpler ones, and then also the associated color that they want applied, so that it's customizable to their taste and their requirements. So just some subtle nuances. I've used very subtle shades. You don't want to put too much on there because otherwise it just becomes a barrage of color. So it's more of a nudge than a slap in the face. And then I use gradient shading just to give it a 3D cool factor appearance. Unfortunately, you can't do that in Google Sheets, but Excel you can. And then de-emphasization, like I say, very important because you want to take away those things that don't need your attention. And then accentuation must have a decision-making purpose. If you put it in all over the place, it just creates noise, and then you battle to sort out what's important from what's not. Some of the challenges that I had is when you copy formatting between areas, it gets messy. It creates multiple rules, one for each copy, and it can accumulate. I ended up having hundreds of these. So the solution to that was each time I do a data ingestion, and by that I mean when I pull information from the Investec API, wipe out all the formatting, and then I reinstate it programmatically so that it's nice and neat and clean. And then it's also possible to have conflicting rules where both are true. And then the sequencing of these rules and whether they carry on evaluating more rules becomes quite important. And this is where Excel in that is quite powerful because it allows you to sequence them quite easily. And then it also allows you to say, just stop. If this one is true, you don't look at any of the other rules. An example of that is I might spend on my credit card, so I want it to be blue, but this expenditure is not categorized. In other words, the bot did not expect this expenditure. Then it must be in red. Now, in this case, I want it to be red. Red is more important to me than the fact that I spent the money. And so the sequence is quite important. So just finishing up, taking it further, improvement considerations. So I'm just suggesting, consider this, have a submodule in your app that allows for full conditional formatting and customization. So you set the target field, what it must apply this to, under what conditions, and what must it look like, what color, etc. And you could also take this further with things like pictures and emojis, and it could be linked to a budget so that you get an unhappy face when you spend at restaurants when your budget's already been exceeded. So there's quite a few things that you could do with this, you know, and the idea behind it is sort of visual accentuation so that the user doesn't have to navigate all over the place to go and get information to make decisions. That's it. Thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, Russell. That was actually pretty interesting. Reynard had this whole question. Reynard, you want to expand on that?
Cool. I remember maybe a week or two ago, you mentioned that you became hyper aware of your finances, and you asked if the community is also becoming that. I do agree that I have also become hyper aware in both the business side and on the personal side. So my question is, do you think that your conditional formatting and your automated sort of high-level insights, if you know the visual language of your spreadsheet, do you think that alleviates some of that hyper awareness, or is the hyper awareness something that you want to alleviate? Do you want to have a hyper awareness of your accounts?
So that's an excellent question. That's actually quite a deep question, because I've thought about these sorts of elements quite a bit. I find that creating, I kept on thinking that I needed to find more information from this data, and how could I find more? And I'm finding that now, through this one source, I feel a lot more satisfied in that I get a lot of decision making, and I know if there's a problem immediately, and it almost comforts me a little bit. I still find myself hyper aware, and it's a good thing in the end. It certainly helped me to police my finances a lot better. I just miss a little bit of the laziness, and I shouldn't really, it is really, altogether, it's a 99% positive thing. I just had this oblique thought the one day, just thinking, I almost missed the bliss of not knowing what was going on so well. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a silly thought, because it definitely, it's had a massive positive benefit for me in terms of managing my personal finances.
Well,
any other questions?
Very
Thanks
cool.
for that. Very cool. Thanks. Thanks for the demo.
You're welcome.
I think Vince just had a comment around the amount of data, sort of like that visual identity and color coding and everything else. But I think you kind of answered it a little bit more in your challenges side. Vince, are you happy with the thinking there?
Yeah, basically having people set up their own colors and what each color means in their case means that they get to opt into the information.
Yeah.
And that kind of skips over the issue that I foresaw with if I arbitrarily decide that orange means there's no supporting document and green means that my mom did the spending and someone else uses the app. Now I need to convey to them, why are some of these transactions green and how is that decided and what does that mean? But if I get to set all of that up and you get to set all of that up, and I don't have to explain to you what your colors mean.
100%.
So that completely resolves that communication challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
If there's anything else, guys, again, the chat's there, the Slack group's there. You've seen Russell in the Slack group. He's very active there. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to him if any sort of questions. And yeah, Russell, we're looking forward to getting to grips with this a little bit further. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Very cool. I think if there's anything else, we can move along. Community updates. So this is where we dive into a little bit more about what is happening in the community for this quarter. But first, as tradition, we're just going to ask for your feedback on the event or on this meetup so far, how we can make it better, and some questions around we would like to get to know you guys a little bit better. So feel free to fill in the feedback form on what he thought about the event, and I'll also randomly select some guys in who give us some feedback to get some more swag, some nice Mia mugs or buffs and hoodies and whatever. Cool. Really appreciate that, guys. Okay, so the hackathon for quarter two, as we've alluded to and mentioned for the last while, the main theme around this quarter is that low code, no code sort of theme. How do we make community members, how do we help you build stuff that's really can be shown to other people around programmable banking, and not just the technical people, but give them the products have a solution that can be used by non-technical people, the end user, essentially, you know, your mom, your sisters, you know, your brothers, that sort of thing. How do we actually provide that solution? And then how can we make that more open and accessible to other people who are keen on what programmable banking can do, but don't have the time to actually dig into it a bit more further on. So we've changed this approach up a little bit on the hackathon. So let us know if you think it's just crazy or just really out there. We're keen to experiment it a bit differently than the usual setup of a hackathon, of like what we've been doing for the last few, where you submitted some really cool builds. We had some judges, some really great judges who evaluated. They picked out the top 5, and those guys got ranked and scored accordingly and got cash prize in a categorization sort of way. But now we're changing it up a little bit and trying to figure out how can we make this a win-win sort of a scenario for everyone involved. So the big idea is, again, the theme is low code and no code. So what we're going to have is 2 end users, essentially. These are judges or sponsors who are end user. They are representing the end user. They're high caliber, but they are non-technical sort of people with the bag of money. You know, they're ready to give you some money, about 45K each in their bag. Plus, there's also a community vote. So a lot of times the non-technical guy might really like a solution, but there might be a really good technical solution that the community really likes. So we're giving you guys the opportunity as a community to also vote on the solutions that you really liked. And that community vote would also get a special community or bonus over and above any prizing or investing that the guys would get through the sponsors. So to reiterate, there's 2 sponsors. They have a bag of cash. They want to give a certain amount of money to any of the submissions that they come across who are submitted through. And there's also a community vote that can win a bonus on top of that. All in all, that pot is about 100K. So when do we start? We'll give you guys some more details as we get closer to the time. I'm just giving you guys a bit of a high view on what we're thinking about at the moment. So we're thinking of starting it on the 27th of May and closing it on the 17th of June. The real trick here is really cool. I think you guys are really going to enjoy this, is that the real trick is that you will have the option to either take the full amount. If you're going to continue to board it, if you say, hey, I want to continue to board on this a little bit further, and out of a good faith, we will give you the full amount. Or you can say, hey, I just submitted a solution. It's just an idea. I'm not going to board further on it. You can take half of that amount. So there's a bit of an incentive to continue to board it out a bit further on, rather than just doing it in that hackathon time period. The time thing. So you'll say, right, I'm going to continue to board with it, and we'll set you up with the meetings, with one-on-one meetings with those end users to board it out even further if you want. So that's the sort of option. It's a bit crazy. Because we'll give you more details as we go along, but that's the high level of it. So we think it's really going to be fun around it. The big timelines, essentially. So we're teasing it out, the details now with you guys. The ideation meetup on the 26th of May is when you'll be able to meet up with those 2 sort of sponsors to really get to know them a little bit more and to ask any sort of questions that you might have. And we'll have a fun ideation sort of the session as normal. As I mentioned, it opens up on the 27th of May, where you can start to code, close on the 17th of June, community votes, and the sponsors deliberate for like a week between the 20th and the 24th of June. And then, of course, we have our demos and our winners on the 30th of June, where we will announce everything and give some cool feedback and demos. So at this point in time, you're wondering, oh, very cool, very nice, but what is it that I can actually board with? Because remember that we're going to be leveraging a spreadsheet banking, and Milan's going to talk a bit further on about it. If you haven't been following on with the story of the whole spreadsheet banking, I'll drop some links in the notes tonight, so you can go back and see where all of this kind of started from. So we're going to be leveraging the spreadsheet banking with the programmable banking stuff. So there's a couple of things that you can use case of to kind of get your, just the thinking about it, is that maybe, look, again, just to take a step back here, these are high level sort of fields that we're looking at that we'll be keen to find a solution for. But again, the hackathon is open to if there's anything really cool that you want to submit that you think is really going to be cool with the spreadsheet banking whole option there. So the spend tagging, which is really cool, where you can tag, you know, is there a smarter way of tagging out those sort of those transactions or purchases or whatever you're doing, or merchants are categorized. How do you categorize the merchants in a smart way on a Google Sheet, on a whole Excel sheet there? How do you do order management? Is there a smart way of doing order management through a Google Sheet or Excel sheet? And then, of course, the card control sort of you know, use case where maybe you have a list of cards that you want to toggle on and off as you go along, you know, in a quick way, or push code quickly to them. So there's a number of sort of use cases. And as we get closer to the time of the ideation session, we'll share some more use cases with you guys, some more problem statements that you guys can start to think about. So then when you're ready to actually code, hey, you already got some ideas that can actually be of some help. So hope that makes sense. Any questions, guys? I know there was like a ton of things, and of course we'll give you more details as we go along, and there will be more rules and regulations around it. Cool. Milan's got a thumbs. He's got a thumbs up. Awesome. Hey, Pavandran, awesome. I know he's in. Cool. Cool, guys. Again, if there's any sort of questions that you might have up front, again, chat, Slack, I'm here for you, WhatsApp. But again, I will be dropping more details tomorrow on it, but that's just the high level of the hackathon. It's a bit different, a bit stranger. Everyone can walk away with the money, swag, prizes, everything else. So it's not just the top 5, or you're not just trying to impress the judges. You're trying to also build something that the community is going to like. You can also walk away with, you know, a cool community prize. Cool. Milan's going to give us a quick update on where he's at with the spreadsheet banking and how that's going to connect up with our whole hackathon build for this quarter. Milan?
Cool, awesome. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, super cool demo, Russell. So, okay, guys, Dan and I made a quick hacky Google Doc to get some input. So just to explain the high level thinking here. So Dan, Jock, and Stephen from P45 are working on this spreadsheet banking thing. And really the problem we are trying to solve, let me share my screen. You've got edit rights to that doc. As you'll see, we going all open on everything this hackathon. I'll also share my screen and you can follow along. Okay, so the core problem we're trying to solve with programmable banking now is making it super easy and fast for developers to get their apps out to the world, to end users. And the tricky part of that is the TLDR is like hashtag security. Like, how do we do this secure but fast and easy? And those are sort of at odds. And the key job to be done is in like the kind of the Steve Jobs thing, real artistship. How do we help everyone to get the awesome stuff they've worked on out into the world? So Russell, your demo is actually perfectly timed and spot on as an example. So this is why we Nick's also sort of changing up the hackathon format. It's getting closer to investment type format. It's free money here, but the idea is we want to try and get it closer to helping people build stuff that can get out in the world and become viable products or businesses, and enabling that quickly and easily. So from a security point of view, we've been working closely with Wayne and the team to build a kind of a model that from a security point of view, the bank is happy to sign off on and we can actually use to deploy production apps. So Russell's example would, in my mind, be like work really well there. And Nick, the the deal with Hackathon is cheating is fine, right? You can use
Yeah.
existing stuff, whatever. That's like kind of desired. So,
Yep.
So Russell, if you were to choose to, you could take your thing as is and just convert it onto this. The only goal here is like stuff that can actually go out to users that fit into the security model, so you could ship it. Russell, from what you demoed, it looks like that would be like work super easily. We're still developing as we go. So part of where I wanted your help on in this doc, please, is some guidance on direction. So this is a little bit of a survey input, whatever, on which direction should we be gunning for. We've got at the end of May coding starts. So by then we need things. We need things for you in terms of things working. And the kind of the axes we're looking at are, one, what functionality is supported, and two, on what tooling does it run. So the known thing is we will have Excel, like Excel in the cloud running. And then there's a question of what features. So for example, card controls available, their transfers, like how much of that do we bake in versus maybe adding a different kind of tooling, maybe a different low code platform, if this then that, Coda, Notion, whatever. So that's what I'm hoping to get some help on here with this doc. By the way, you guys are free to edit, comment, or whatever as you go. The key things I thought, just a for fun one, is I see some people have already started filling this in, is just it's maybe an offers in joke, because people are always having this debate, like what's a real programmer? But just what in your mind per thing here, please cast a vote. Is it programming or isn't it? Is a regular expression, is that programming or not? Does a spreadsheet macro count? Blah, blah, blah. I'd love to just see what people think. And then apparently I'm old, because Dan didn't know what GW Basic is. So the spoiler is that's the Microsoft DOS version of Basic that shipped with the IBM XT. So that's what I learned to code on. And if any of you guys else, it had that Gobbles game or something like that. I can't remember what it was called, a little snake game that, you know, my first coding was basically cheating the game to always get a high score. And then somehow that
Was Gorilla or Nibbles?
Oh, yeah, Nibbles,
Yeah.
yes, and Gorilla. Yeah, then Gorilla.
Giving away my age.
Yeah, I love GW Basic. It did, like, your graphics was so simple. You had 640 by 480 in memory, and you could pull out colors there. So you could like build such amazing games and things. And then they made it all complicated. I'm also just too old for this.
I've just got to add mine. So just quickly adding mine. So yeah, feel free. You guys, I shared it in the chat. So you have doc access. So you can throw in emojis as you go. Fun part is I did check this up. From what I can see, all of these are actually Turing complete these days. As of last year, Excel macros are Turing complete. So technically you can code anything in any of these. If that sways your vote, don't let it. But these are now all universal languages. Maybe not the most efficient. I think with regex, there's some extension you need for it to be fully Turing complete, but some variants are. Okay, so that was the fun one. The more serious one, where even if you've got time afterwards to poke at a little bit, please do spend like a minute helping here, because it'll shape what we have ready for the hackathon. Basically, we want to know which tools to target. So there are a heck of a lot of these so-called low-code tools out, and that are gaining a lot of traction. And like Dan and I have played it on some of them recently, and like they are super powerful. So I don't know if you guys know Notion or Coda. They're quite similar. Like Dan's busy building a workflow where for meetings, it manages calendar invites, sets up Zoom, pulls the videos off the cloud, sends them to AI transcribing, summarizing, like all in freaking Coda. So you can do some pretty crazy stuff these days. So basically wanted to know if you've used any of these, please add your name or note. And if there are any we missed, it'll be super useful. So it's basically, let's say I learned today actually that Henny seems to know quite a bit about Microsoft Power Automate and does things in it. So the idea would be that Henny then like puts his name there and goes, yes, I know this, and hey, it would be very useful if we have all the programmable banking extensions available there, because I could then sync it in my workflow, which is basically what Henny said earlier today, when he was like, hey, I can do a thing to do confirmations and stuff on transactions in MS Teams, which is their workflow. So guys, please add things. Just want to see how voting's going. Yeah, spreadsheet macro is getting some hate.
I like the choice of the devil emoji casting a positive vote for regex.
The irony.
Just to check, do you guys all have edit access? Is that working fine for everyone? See, I'm getting some yeses, and can I see how many people we have in here? I don't know, but yeah, I think there's a bunch of anonymous critters.
15.
So I guess that's us. Cool. Then I guess, Russell, if you don't mind if I kind of pick on you just in the minute we have, if we had for the hackathon ready Excel implementation for spreadsheet banking that live syncs transactions, does sort of money transfer and these card rules as we have it, like, which I guess, does that enable you in your mind to sort of build the solution you've just demoed on top of it? And is that the kind of thing you'd want to get out into the world for other people to use?
Yeah, so so for instance, I've developed a solution that it doesn't have live synced, but it has batch synced at any frequency that you want, and does automated money transfers based upon a set of parameters. But it doesn't deal with card spend rules. I've just amended those myself and directly in the IDE.
Okay.
But what I like about it is that my original training was as an accountant, and I pretty much found that every piece of software that I work with that is data orientated, almost every user that I end up dealing with says, how can I pull this information out into a spreadsheet? You know, they want to see it in either Google Sheets or in Excel so that they can start manipulating it. I found that users like that power and that ability to now do whatever they like with that data. And that's one of the reasons that I think spreadsheets definitely could play a role in the future of this functionality, because you're already now in the zone that a lot of users feel comfortable with. But as you said earlier on, there are issues with security, etc., that one needs to consider.
So just on that security, to give you an idea of what we're aiming for, would be that any investor client, business or individual, can get as a baseline call it a generic Excel sheet that syncs to their bank account, and we'd host that OAuth layer and whatever for that. So that's secure. And then at minimum, at that endpoint on that sheet, you can then say, hey, this is a customized version of the sheet that does, in your case, conditional formatting, et cetera, without having to touch the bank bits of their account, so that you can kind of deploy your work to them without having to worry about that. That's kind of the idea on the spreadsheet side. And then I guess part of why I'm sending this doc out, and I'd love your guys' feedback. And that, just to be clear, guys, if you from P45 or Investing or whatever, please also fill it in, like it all counts. So don't feel you'll taint our data. Is some of the use cases, it might be that a low code kind of endpoint is something you'd want. So what I mean by that is, if I take an example of if this then that, that's kind of the first of these solutions that I became aware of. We've already got a working prototype for that, where basically card rules, transactions, transfers, all of that become little sort of like blocks in if this then that, and then you could sync that up against anything. So that it would be the user can, the end user can link their account to if this and that using this kind of pre-baked middle layer, and then you could build an applet or whatever and invest in if this and that to do whatever specific thing you're interested in, or link to whatever you want, without once again having to touch the bank bits of a third party user. So those are the two streams we're thinking. There's like spreadsheet stream, which is quite powerful. Like in theory, it passes the Turing complete test for programmable banking. It can do all the things, but it's kind of visually at least specific. And then there's the broader low code tool set. So getting your guys' view of, okay, how would you trade these off? What would you be interested in building? What functionality would you want to see for the hackathon? Would be super useful. Yes, Russell.
I think one of the things to consider is that Google Sheets has taken off in terms of popularity. So a lot of people think, I tended to think only in terms of Excel, in terms of spreadsheets. And then when I submitted my last item in the hackathon, there were quite a few people that said, yo, we'd far rather see this in Sheets. So I think eventually, whatever solution, if there is a spreadsheet-based solution that makes it to market, I think it would need to cater for both environments.
Agreed. So our plans definitely have Google Sheets as well. And whether in time for the hackathon is more debatable. Yeah, I agree, Vince. In terms of age, I guess the interesting thing I was thinking is for businesses, for like business type use cases. You know, what is what's the balance? I think in terms of shipping apps that have I guess kind of deeply engaged users potentially, and are potentially something that could form yeah, that is what Tinus is saying. Never seen Google Sheets in a bank. But the idea is definitely to do both. The reason we started with Excel is exactly the Tinus comment. Like people at Investec were like, Google Sheet, what is that? Like, I heard it's evil, so that's dangerous. That's sort of the general vibe with larger companies and Google Sheets.
Yeah, I managed to get it working with both fairly effectively. Yeah.
Okay, so if we assuming, okay, so if we'd rolled out a Google Sheet one as well, you would do a dual version.
Yeah, I just think that one needs to, you know, if you're going to try and capture that sort of, I'm not saying it has to happen that you have to do both of them, but I'm just thinking that you may lose some of the market. Particularly, I think a lot of Mac users are quite keen on Google Sheets as opposed to Excel. You know, there's some people that are just anti-Microsoft. But yeah, it's just a thought.
Yeah, agreed.
That's one of the.
Add a comment, and I think part of the reason we looking at Excel initially is like the way you want to secure it is to plug into existing security infrastructure. Like, so if you're in a bank, you want to make sure that whatever you're building plugs into that bank security footprint. So if there's data loss or anything, that can be covered. And I think that's part of the driver here, is to say, how do we secure it in a way that if we deploy it into an organization that runs on Microsoft Active Directory or one of those types of setups, we can actually just plug it into that Active Directory, and you don't have to worry about the security there, because the organizations that spend millions of rands like hardening their security around those documents. I'm not sure how that works in Google Sheets. I'm sure there is a similar way with Google Identity, all of that. I think from
it does work, right? I keep trying to convince when it's definitely solid, but you spend too much time in the bank.
I don't know many organizations that run the infrastructure of Google Identity. That's the problem I'm facing.
But maybe it's something that you could consider doing in Excel, and then continue. And then if that works, you know, then seeing how can we port this through to Sheets.
100%. We're definitely looking at Google Sheets as an option. It's just, I'm giving some of the reasoning for me rather wanting Excel now, because I can then get it deployed in an enterprise. So if somebody builds an app, we can actually go deploy that inside of our enterprise's AD, and it's secure, and it gives people comfort to know that it's not just some thing that's lying around an Excel spreadsheet that can be copy pasted and sent everywhere.
Yeah, Mac Excel has also got a lot better. I've been playing around quite a lot in Excel. It's actually got pretty good. The magic is you get a desktop app that's cloud synced with the file. I'm actually finding that pretty useful. So awesome. Yeah, so I'm way over time, but thanks everyone. That's like super super useful feedback. Please do poke at the doc. If you're coding something in Notion or Power Automate, anything like that, please note it there. It'll be super useful feedback. I'll keep looking at the doc.
Where do you get hold of GW Basics still today, Milan? I have not been able to get anything like that ever in the last 20 years.
That's a good question. There must be some images somewhere, you know, like a kind of the Docker of there's a whole scene. Yeah, there's a whole emulator scene for the old gaming platform. So there must be something for just like IBM XT.
We just go back there. It's fine.
Guys, thank you very much. Again, we'll post all the links to all of the stuff in the Slack group. We will send it out to you guys. If there is anything you guys want to know more about, any questions to anyone, Milan, Wayne, Russell, any of the guys, they're on Slack. We can find them. If we can't find them, we'll hunt them down for you. So please let us know if there's anything that you want to know further on. Our next meetup is, of course, on the 26th of May, which is the ideational session that we've been all talking about. And we'll give some more details around the hackathon leading up to the ideational session. We just gave a quick little teaser now. I know it wasn't a lot, but we will be dropping some more content to there. We just wanted to see if you guys were excited, not excited for a bit of a change up. So clearly you guys are excited for a bit of a change up. So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for your time, your patience. And I know that we are running a little bit over time, by a lot of time. But again, if there's anything you want to know, please let us know. We're here to help each other. And we love you all. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. Cheers, guys. If you want to stay around and chat more, you're more than welcome to. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thank you, Russell. Thanks, man. Dan, thanks, man.
Thanks. That was fun. Cheers, dude.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, everyone.